Hi friends, Miss Shirley here again. We are going to continue reading Frog and Toad, Our Friends by Arnold Lobel. Yesterday we read the section of Spring, and today we are reading the section called The Story. Right? So sit back and listen. It's going to be really good. I'm excited. Okay, here we go. One day in summer, Frog was not feeling well. Toad said, "Frog, who are you looking quite green?" "But I always look green," said Frog. "I am a frog." "Today you look very green, even for a frog," said Toad. "Get into bed and rest." Toad made Frog a cup of hot tea. Frog drank the tea, and then he said, "Tell me a story while I am resting." Well, he's being a good friend. Giving Frog a nice, warm, hopefully it's hot, tea. Would you do something like that for your friends? I'm sure you would. "All right," said Toad. "Let me think of a story to tell you." Toad thought and thought, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. "I will go out on the front porch and walk up and down," said Toad. "Perhaps that will help me to think of a story." Toad walked up and down on the porch for a long time, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. He looks very puzzled. He does not know of a story to tell poor Frog. He really wants to help his friend out. He really does. Let's see if he figures out one. Then Toad went into the house and stood on his head. Stood on his head? Have you tried that? "Why are you standing on your head?" asked Frog. "I hope that if I stand on my head, it will help me to think of a story," said Toad. Toad stood on his head for a long time, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. See? Frog's like, "Why are you doing that?" That's very weird. And there is Toad standing on his head. Hope he doesn't stay on his head too long. You know, when you do that, the blood rushes to your head, and then once you get back up, you get all dizzy. Ooh. Then Toad poured a glass of water over his head. "Why are you pouring water over your head?" asked Frog. "I hope that if I pour water over my head, it will help me to think of a story," said Toad. Toad poured many glasses of water over his head, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. Look, there he goes. Pouring water all over his head. If we do that, it'll just kind of look like we just got out of the shower. Your hair will be drenched. Oh, goodness. Then Toad began to bang his head against the wall. Ooh, ouch. "Why are you banging your head against the wall?" asked Frog. "I hope that if I bang my head against the wall hard enough, it will help me to think of a story," said Toad. "I am feeling much better now," Toad said. Frog, "I do not think I need a story anymore." "Then you get out of bed and let me get into it," said Toad, "because now I feel terrible." Frog said, "Would you like me to tell you a story, Toad?" "Yes," said Toad, "if you know one." Poor Toad. Poor Toad. Doing so much to think of a story that now he doesn't feel well because of everything he did. But hey, at least Frog feels better. "Once upon a time," said Frog, "there were two good friends, a frog and a toad. The frog was not feeling well. he asked his friend the toad to tell him a story. The toad could not think of a story. He walked up and down on the porch, but he could not think of a story. He stood on his head, but he could not think of a story. He poured water over his head, but he could not think of a story. He banged his head against the wall, but he still could not think of a story. Then the toad did not feel so well, and the frog was feeling better. So the toad went to bed, and the frog got up and told him a story. The end. How was that, Toad? Said Frog. But Toad did not answer. He had fallen fast asleep. Oh, there is Toad, fast asleep. And that is the end of the story by Arnold LaBelle in the book of Frog and Toad Are Friends. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you guys tomorrow.